Welcome to the Heart of Innovation. 60 minutes that could save life and limb with new breakthrough ideas and innovation changing the healthcare landscape. Brought to you by patient advocacy group thewaytomyheart.org in partnership with Cardiovascular System Incorporated's patient advocacy campaign, Take a Stand Against Amputation. Here are your hosts for the Heart of Innovation, Emmy Award-winning journalist and founder of The Way to My Heart, Kym McNicholas, and interventional cardiologist and founder of the Save My Piggies Health Education Series, Dr. John Phillips.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is my favorite type of show because it's all about the practical information that we can do in our everyday lives to help improve our health. But even on vacation, there is a new trend in ecotourism, and along with that, a push for hotels and motels and resorts to have their own wellness centers. So whether we're at home or on vacation, we can focus on our heart and vascular health. We have with us today Sid Garza-Hillman. He is the head of wellness for the new Stanford Inn, a brand new health and wellness center / hotel along the Mendocino Coast, which is right in my neck of the woods, right up the California coast. And he is going to be talking about some new advanced, nutritional and wellness options that a lot of these hotels and such are offering. So I'm really excited about this, John. We should have gotten you on a plane and we both should have gone live at the Stanford Inn.
I know. I mean, so clearly, and forgive my ignorance, I've never heard the term ecotourism before. Maybe I have. I just didn't really put two and two together. And, you're on the West Coast. I'm in the heartland. Things take a little bit to get to us. So I don't know if we have ecotourism, but maybe after this show, I'll want to start something. But in preparation for this show, Sid and I had a conversation, and he shared with me a lot of what he does and did. And he's a podcaster. He's written some books, and he's I'm going to get this wrong and he's going to correct me, but he's a breathing coach, I think. And so I've got a little treat for us at some point during the show that I've got planned. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I really enjoy the opportunity to talk to somebody about something that I don't really know a lot about, and they're a content expert. So ecotourism, wellness centers, eating healthy, it's all good. So let's roll.
I think it's about time before we get started with a moment of inspiration from you, Dr. Phillips.
Dr. John Phillips, spectacular vascular moment of inspiration.
So I'm getting ready to go on vacation tomorrow.
Yeah, right. Speaking of which, make me jealous.
Well, it's been kind of a stressful month for me. I know I've shared this with you. We are short-staffed in our cath lab, and so I've been working a lot and on call, and first world problems, et cetera. And we're going to be talking about the resort that folks go to relax, and then the wellness center that Sid runs. But I was trying to find an interesting quote about worrying and stress and things, and so I have two. The first one is about worrying, and this is anonymous. I don't know who said it, but they said worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but never gets you anywhere. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, I like Oprah Winfrey. I don't really watch her show, not a huge fan, but this is a quote that I thought was kind of interesting along the lines of breathing and trying to get the most out of that expansion of the lungs. She's quoted as saying, "Breathe, let go, and remind yourself that this very moment is the only one you have for sure." So I think the nice thing about it is you say, all right, I'm here in the moment. I can capitalize on this. There's a stimulus in front of me, and between that stimulus and how I react is a space. And so I can choose how I react and to worry about it or not worry, and just kind of being in the moment. So with that, let's get into wellness. Let's get into nutrition. Let's get into ecotourism.
I love both of those quotes. They both remind me of just a situation this week with one of our patients in one of our groups who called me very concerned because she had just found out that she had a stroke, but only had thought she had had a heart attack, and she had had both when she was in cardio rehab. right? But now that she's learned that she had a stroke, she's concerned that the cardio rehab isn't enough for her. So the poor thing was just in tears yesterday, freaking out about the fact that she had a stroke. But her whole treatment protocol for rehab is not going to change. And so I had to walk her through the fact that to say that, well, does the fact that you had a stroke change anything as to where you're at right now and where you're going in your treatment plan and your rehab plan? We need to stop right now and put away the past and be proactive about the future. You can't cry about spilt milk. You can only clean it up.
Yeah, we had a meeting with some of our nurse practitioners about some issues, and that was, yes, you have to deal with the past, recognize it, but you got to move forward and take a positive step forward as opposed to either going backwards or spinning in place. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Hope you had a good week as well, Kym, right?
Oh, we had a tough one as well. So we're just moving out of that whole. I think I mentioned last week that we had a patient we had to have life flighted because there wasn't a vascular surgeon on call in her middle of nowhere hospital. And by the time they were able to get the life flight in, it was too late. Her leg had already gone septic. And a few days later, she is passed. But, all the doctors tried, everyone tried, did the best they could. And while we try to save everybody, not everyone can be saved. And each and every one is really hard. So
that's tough,
but move forward, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, you do what you can. Not everybody can be saved, but it's life, unfortunately. But you learn from the mistakes or whatever, and then try to use that to help the next person. And with that, let's talk about wellness.
I do. I think we both need the vacation now. And I think that I am getting in my car and I'm driving right up to the Stanford Inn and I am going to visit Sid. Sid, thank you so much for joining us and helping to bring a little bit more positive spirit, positive energy, more well-being into our presence.
Happy to be here and thanks for having me.
So Sid, tell us a little bit about your background, your educational history as such, and how you got involved in ecotourism and then the wellness center at the Inn.
Cool. Well, first I'll just let you know that Jeff and Joan Stanford started this and they bought it as a very small lodge and then they turned it into the resort that it is, but they bought it in 1980. So I've been here 17 years and we've had the wellness center even longer than that. So it's pretty established. We've grown it since then and into multiple different areas, which we can talk about, but that's what that is. My bachelor's degree is in philosophy from UCLA. So I had no designs on nutrition early on. I always joked that my degree helped me for what I was pursuing, which was to be an indie rock musician. And then, but I was also a lifelong.
You're going to sing for us too?
Sure. I just finished a new album for the first time in 15 years, which is kind of cool. But side note, but also about stress relief. So, I was a lifelong asthmatic and I made a little dietary change when I was 22 and my asthma went away and never came back. My allergies gone. And so at that point, I started reading voraciously on nutrition. I moved up here with my wife and first child at the time. We have twins since then. But I went back to school and became a certified nutritionist. At that point, took over the wellness programs director position here. And with Joan and Jeff have grown this wellness center into a very cool multi-directional place that is all about stress management. And we want people to have fun on vacation, but also to take home with them some tools that will not allow them to manage stress most of the time because vacation is never enough. And so that's where we're at now. And it's a pretty incredible place.
So I have to ask you about that asthma because I do have asthma. I have adult onset of asthma. What was that tip? You can't leave us hanging on that.
Dairy.
That's right. I ended up anaphylactic to dairy last year. I found this out.
I was definitely dairy allergy. I read a book. This has been in about 92. I graduated in 91. So the book was called Fit for Life. And they were talking about, and they made some comment in the book about dairy and asthma. I said, that's ridiculous. But I figured, I got nothing to lose. So I gave it up for a month. My asthma went away and I was like, oh man, that's crazy. And so that was the first. I was 22, so it was just like this, and I didn't even eat really that healthy, but just that move had such a huge effect on me. No more inhalers, and I was singing at night, and I'm at that point a recreational runner. And it was really great to not have asthma. It was pretty cool. But it's opened my eyes of that there is an effect, a very profound effect food can have. It doesn't solve everything, but it does make a big dent in our overall health and stress. And so it just allowed me to research for the next 15 years before I actually decided to do it as a profession. We
have about 30 seconds before coming up on a break. And when we get to that next segment, I do want to talk about, what is a wellness center, but it sounds like that little change with dairy or removing dairy, right, sparked your interest in nutrition, and that kind of set you on this course. Is that a fair statement? That's a totally fair statement. And I just became passionate about it and decided I was going to pursue it when I moved up here and decided to go back and become certified in it because it was such a fascinating subject for me. And I wanted to be able to teach people and work with people on that level. Fantastic.
Here on The Heart of Innovation, we're going to find out exactly what he's teaching. And I think he might teach us a few things as well before we get through this hour. So stay with us.
Leg health can indicate risk for heart attack, stroke, and amputation. If you have leg pain or cramps while walking, get checked for peripheral artery disease, or PAD. PAD is plaque buildup in mainly the leg arteries. Be sure to ask your physician for an ankle brachial index, also called an ABI test, where they use blood pressure cuffs to analyze the blood pressure in your legs. If they discover you have arterial plaque that's limiting blood flow to your feet, medicine and a regimented walking program are frontline treatment. If PAD is in its advanced stages, your physician may schedule a surgical intervention. Minimally invasive tools are available to remove plaque and restore blood flow, including Cardiovascular System's Diamondback 360 atherectomy system, which sands away plaque that is a hard calcium. It's important to discuss all options with your physician, and if told you have no options, get a second opinion. Take a stand against amputation. For more information, go to standagainsamputation.com. That's standagainsamputation.com.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kym McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for joining us. We are continuing our conversation with Sid, who is the Stanford Inn Wellness Programs Director. So, Sid, tell me, what is a wellness program, and what's it doing at a resort where folks are on vacation? Don't they want to get away and just do nothing?
And eat lots and lots of good
and eat food. Bad food?
Yeah, well, so yes and no. There are some guests who do nothing. They sit on their deck and have a cosmopolitan and look at the ocean. But there's a certain amount of people that have, while on vacation, a desire to do some wellness related things. We live in a really natural area up here in Mendocino. I'm a trail runner. So beautiful natural beauty. The Stanford Inn land itself is insane. Some people don't even leave the property. They're just walking around our organic gardens, and they're taking one of our canoes up the river. It's very much of a, I would say, a reconnection to nature, or at least to be in a natural setting. We are a nice resort also, but it's beautiful with the plants and everything else. So it's a weird kind of mix. It works really, really well. But some guests want to take a class. They're here, they're on vacation. It's still super fun. I do my best, and the practitioners here, to make everything very fun. This isn't like a Esalen where you go to do classes all day. This is a vacation spot, and people go, oh, it'd be fun to take a cooking class. And so they book a cooking class, or a nutrition, or a creative play shop that Joan Stanford teaches, where people just get in and get messy with art and incredible. People's faces just brighten up after, and so it adds to the stress relief of vacations by taking on some of these wellness activities.
So for me, since I mentioned I'm going on vacation and I have to drive 10 hours to North Carolina, and then we're going to a beach with my family, and there's about 25 of us, I get really excited about going, and then I come back, it goes by so quickly, and I'm not refreshed. And I don't know what it is, because we're planning things and we're doing stuff and we're running around. So it sounds like you guys take a different approach, right? Or at least have an outlet for people to explore a cooking class, or just kind of decompress and get, back to their roots with nature as such. Do you find that the guests really enjoy this? I mean, is it a pretty popular place?
Yeah, it is. It is a great place, and it is such a one of a kind. This resort is there's nothing like it. I mean, actually nothing like it. And so guess, any vacation can be stressful depending on travel. We're pretty remote. So if you're coming from New York, it's going to be an all day travel. So you could show up back at home and feel kind of burnt. We do our best to make sure that guests while they're here are having a very relaxing time. And in terms of the wellness side of things, that they're coming home, back home with actual tools to implement at home, because again, vacation's never enough. And so vacation should be restorative and restful, but then how are you doing most of the time, like the other 51 weeks a year? That's really going to be what makes a person healthy and happy, is going to be most of the time kind of models. And that's really what I'm focused on as a practitioner. And what we're focused on here is the practical stuff to help change people's lives when they get home.
Share a story of someone that literally came to your facility and had some sort of awakening while they were there.
It's been a bunch. I mean, we get emails from people who go, and we're not even it's not a health retreat. I can't stress that enough. It's very odd because there's healthy things to do, but we're not a place like Hippocrates in Florida where people come for detox. We don't do detoxes, but we get all these emails from people who came here, then they go home and they start eating better. They don't eat 100% healthy. Neither do I, by the way, but they eat better most of the time. And they will reference their stay here. They'll say, I was here 5 years ago. And during that stay, they took some classes and they went home, and it literally changed their business, how they do the business of their lives. Like, it changed their ability to treat themselves better. That's how I come at it. And it's pretty cool. And it happens a lot. It's not a one-off. It's like, oh yeah, I was there 2 years ago. And after I came home, I started eating better and I feel great. And I've lost 30 pounds and I have way more energy, all because of this 4-day stay here, And so it's what Joan and Jeff have built. And I'd like to think that I had a hand in that over the years, has been a really special thing. We're not heavy handed. You don't come in and have to take anything, like I said, but people kind of wander in. I just did a breath class yesterday with 3 mother and 2 daughters. Didn't really know what to expect. They didn't. And I just saw them in the lobby before this interview, and they were just like, I was practicing it. I just was doing it today. And they're already kind of excited about it, and it's very rewarding to see that happen.
So that's a great segue.
I was just going to say, good call.
And so can you share with us over a couple of minutes or so, how because I know that breathing is obviously we have to breathe, right? But I don't think we all breathe properly, and you can use change in the cadence of your pattern to, relax and whatnot. So is it a breath coach, or is that what it's called? You're a breath coach?
I'm a certified functional breathing coach. The approach is called the Oxygen Advantage, and it's used by professional athletes and regular folks like you and I. It's been a game changer for me. I've been practicing the Wim Hof method for 5 years, as I was telling Kym earlier, but I don't teach that. I teach the Oxygen Advantage. I went back and trained in that approach because of its effect on how we breathe most of the time. Again, that's my focus. It's so much my focus that with clients, I call it MOT. I just abbreviated it, most of the time. Everybody gets set on the one-offs. I binged on it. It's like, yeah, but what are you doing? How are you doing most of the time? We always focus on the one thing instead of kind of the aggregate of what we do most of the time. So I'm geared as a breath coach to training people through a variety of exercises to breathe functionally most of the time, even during sleep. And it's been absolutely a game changer. I was telling Kym with clients, I teach my stress management and run a company called Small Steppers, stress management and my breathing first for weeks before I even discuss things like running or fitness or nutrition. It's the breath and the stress management. It's that effective. It's actually changed people's eating patterns before I've even talked about nutrition, just by everything calmed down. They're less reactive, less stress eating. Their digestion is better because they're under a low stress state. So before I even have to talk about diet with them, they're already seeing the effect of stress management on the quality of their lives. It's very cool.
Can you give us a sample?
Yeah. And because I was told that it's surprising that even, people think they're getting enough oxygen just because they put the little oximeter on their finger, but it's so much more to that in terms of getting enough oxygen for overall everything, including your cognitive ability, right? Making sure you're top of your game. Can you just describe the difference?
Yes. So good point. And every time I do a class, I wire them up on that pulse oximeter. I said, I guarantee you're going to be between 95 and 99%. And they are every time. It's not the issue of getting enough oxygen. And that's a misunderstanding when it comes to breath work. We're all breathing enough. In fact, we're over breathing. The problem with the breath in the modern world, given the sort of just baseline higher level of stress, is that we're blowing out too much CO2. This is where it gets super interesting. And that is that CO2 is called the Bohr effect. When it is allowed to rise enough, it will trigger the release of the oxygen from the hemoglobin into the tissues. So it's not that we don't have enough in the blood. We do. Everybody who wires up to a pulse oximeter, almost everybody's going to have almost 95 to 99%. Is it being released? And as we're over breathing and blowing out all that CO2, our levels are so low that they aren't high enough. But the other side of it, and we continue after the next break, is that CO2 is what triggers us to breathe. It's not low oxygen. It's an increase in CO2. Because we keep our levels so low, it takes just this much to trigger us to breathe. But so we blow out again, and we don't allow it to rise up enough to trigger that release. So we're always keeping our CO2 levels too low. It's very weird because we think CO2, you got to get rid of it. We're getting rid of too much. And that's a weird thing. So over time with my coaching, I'm training people to become desensitized to just a little more CO2 in the blood. And that goes by nasal in and out, slowing your breath down, lightening your breath. I can take you through if you guys are interested, but just kind of that level over time. But it is over time because people are so used to having so little in there that the slightest rise, they feel like they need to breathe. They blow it out again and it's kept low again. So over time, by desensitizing, they can slow everything down and allow a baseline level of a little bit more CO2 in the bloodstream at any given time.
Fantastic. So stay with us. Coming up after the break, Sid is going to teach us how to breathe.
3 years ago, my symptoms started with leg pain and leg cramps while walking.
Me too, with a tightness in my calves.
Well, do you know, my doctor thought that my leg cramps were a side effect of the statin he prescribed me.
Well, my doctor just brushed them off as another symptom of old age.
Mine thought the pain was radiating from my spine.
My doctor blamed my neuropathy on diabetes until I got a wound on my foot that just wouldn't heal.
Yeah, it turns out we all have peripheral artery disease, also known as PAD.
It's plaque buildup mainly in the leg arteries causing poor circulation.
For me, the diagnosis came too late and I lost my leg, but that does not have to happen to you.
No, it does not, because there are treatment options available if you're diagnosed early enough.
PAD. Peripheral artery disease. If you've been experiencing leg pain, leg cramps, or neuropathy when walking, and your doctor isn't hearing you, we are. We are the Way to My Heart, the largest support network for peripheral artery disease patients, and we want to help you get back on your feet again. Visit our website at thewaytomyheart.org or call our Leg Saver hotline 415-320-7138. Your life and limb could depend on it.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kym McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Before we went to break, Sid was sharing with us his techniques of kind of relaxation through breathing, how to breathe properly. And now, Sid, you're going to coach myself and Kym and those listening on how to maybe breathe a little bit differently, huh?
Cool. So I'll start by saying that the reason I love this so much is that it's not a new way to breathe. This is a physiological, natural way for the human species to breathe, which is almost entirely through our nose, in and out. Our mouth breathing is for times when stress rises enough. Back in the wild, it'd be when we're being chased by a lion, we're going to go to the mouth. But during the day, most times it's in through the nose and out through the nose. Nitric oxide, and it's a broadening, it's humidifying and warming the air. It really adds to a more efficient oxygenation of tissue. So the idea is, and I'm going to start you with a very good warm up, but I'll sort of spoiler alert it. The functional breath for the human being is about 6 breaths per minute. And so it's about a 4-second inhale and a 6-second exhale, but it's very slow and very light. So it looks like this. You will not even know that I'm breathing. It's not upper chest. It's allowing the diaphragm down here to expand all the way around and allow the lungs to go down as you breathe. And it's just very light. Go ahead.
We're on the radio, so we also, for those who can't actually see what we're doing, we got to describe to them a little bit more. Got it. So the diaphragm is basically a muscle underneath your lungs, and it goes down as you inhale. In theory, everyone keeps their midsections very tight, so sometimes there's nowhere to go but upper chest, so their shoulders rise and their chest kind of goes up. But the best transition into the blood of oxygen goes at the bottom of the lungs. And so when we lighten our breath and slow our breath, we move from something like this, which if your listeners can hear is more of a quick thing, to more of a quiet, slow. So what we're going to do here, just a few rounds. This is a really good calming exercise. So I'm going to say, take a regular breath in, regular breath out. You're going to do that through your nose. And as you exhale, it's a nice, long, extended exhale, which stimulates the vagus nerve. It's that parasympathetic side and calms you down. I'm going to say regular breath in and regular breath out. You're going to release that exhale. You're not going to blow it out. Just release it till it stops. And you're going to hold on that exhale for 5 seconds. And then you're going to breathe. I'll take you through the whole thing. Then you're just going to breathe for about 10 seconds. Hold on the exhale for 5. Breathe for 10, hold on the exhale for 5. You want to try it real quick? Sure. You're going to coach us through?
Okay, let's do it. Go. So I'm going to say, and I'll coach you through the whole thing.
Okay.
Regular breath in, regular breath out through the nose. Release your exhale till it stops by itself. And just as an estimate, but anyways, and hold on the exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now breathe regularly through the nose. So you're lightening and you're softening, real quiet. You shouldn't even imagine the little hairs in your nose not even moving. That's kind of the end game. This is hard for people who are very sensitive to CO2 because at slightest rise, they start to feel like they need to breathe, and that's okay. But over time, it gets easier. So let's try it again. Regular breath in, regular breath out through the nose. Release your exhale, let it out until it stops by itself. And hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now breathe regularly again. So you kind of come back in your breath. And what we're doing here is by holding that exhale, we're allowing a little more CO2 to creep in. Not so much that people panic or whatever, but a little more. And you start to exercise over time, your body getting used to having a little more CO2 in your cardiovascular system at any given time. One more time. Regular breath in, regular breath out. Release your exhale. And hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a really nice exercise I do that as I'm warming up before a run. I do it to cool down. Slows your heart rate down. Again, stimulates that vagus nerve, the long extended exhale. And it's a really cool kind of wherever you are going into a meeting, you can do it in your head. Release your exhale, hold it for 5 seconds, breathe to recover. And just about 3 to 5 rounds of that is a really great, effective way to
I felt like as I was doing it, my stomach was expanding and I was focusing more on the diaphragm abdomen as opposed to.
That's right.
People, doing that.
In this approach, people, when they say deep breath, people often think, but in my approach, Oxygen Advantage, deep breath means deep into the lungs. It's not deep full. So it's a very light breath and it's a very quiet breath. And in fact, the motto of the approach is breathe light to breathe right. So it's over time, a lightening. This is how I just want your listeners to know how crazy I am. I was a mouth breather for 50 years, and I have transitioned myself to nasal breathing 100% at night, but I tape my mouth shut.
Well, I was going to ask you that because I've seen people. There's tape, and I'm thinking, there's obviously something to that, which you just
for sure, and I've transitioned over time by desensitizing myself to CO2. When I go for runs, I'm almost entirely through my nose, unless I'm on a real steep trail. I'll transition to mouth. That's appropriate. And then as soon as it levels out or goes downhill, I'm back into my nose. So it's a really great way to keep yourself, the fitness levels go up, endurance goes up, anxiety comes down, stress comes down, sleep gets better, all those kinds of things.
So this is something that we have unlearned over time, I imagine.
Correct. It's, I attribute it, Kym, to the stress of the modern world. When I teach, I always say we removed the 2 biggest parts of stress when we were in the wild: chased by lions and can't find food. We got rid of those. We got those dialed in most countries. We're not being chased by wild animals, and we know where our food's coming from. And yet our baseline level of stress is too high. And because of that, our response in our bodies is to breathe too much. We are over breathing and we're very shallow. And it's sort of we're kind of heart rate variability. I don't know if you work in that realm. Heart rate variability is not in good shape for the modern human being. And so this is a return to a more natural way to breathe that makes everything physiologically run a little bit better.
I wonder if this is something that Dr. Phillips can do with some of his patients during a consult.
Well, I think that this is the second time I've heard of this theory in a book that I'm reading. And I guess I never really thought about how I breathe. I just know that I tend to probably breathe with my mouth. And when I'm exercising, I'm doing this a lot of times. And I find that fascinating that, Sid, do you run ultra marathon? Or I mean, like, you're a runner though, right? So, I mean, you're now. Okay.
But I mean, I didn't run my first ultra until I was 46.
But so you can train yourself to breathe through your nose the whole time, except when you have to. And I think that's fascinating. I just felt, I don't know about you, Kym, but that 2 minutes that we were doing it, focusing on my breathing, I felt really calm it felt pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, I also felt like my head cleared up.
Yeah, I agree.
The focus was a little bit more there.
Yeah. I mean, I practice literally every day. And I will tell you that it has been, I find myself calmer. I'm in meetings. I'm mouth closed. I've kind of just trained myself. The only time is at night. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. How often do you practice, or how often should somebody practice?
Well, I'm a small stepper. So I say if it's a minute a day and it gets it on your radar most days, that's a great place to start. I will say that probably when you add the Wim Hof and in the cold tub that I do, and because I do breath work in there as well, and plus this, I probably an hour at least. But you got to understand, some of that is like in the car on the way to work. I have an app that counts me 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out. And I follow that in the car on the way to work. I follow it in the car on the way home from work. So I go to the town to check the mail for the resort. I do an exercise on my way to the post office. So I kind of integrate it into my life such that I'm not sitting there, I can't do anything else. I've made it part of my life.
So just so I understand it, is it 4 seconds inhalation and then exhalation and then not pushing it out and then a 6 second pause? Is that right or no?
No, it is 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out. There is no pause here. So there are many different box breathing and the 4-7-8. Those are holds and those are exercises. And those are what I have my clients do. I mean, not those, but exercises. But what I'm talking about is a 4 second inhale, 6 second out as a way to breathe most of the time. The exercises are to program you to breathe close to that when you're not thinking about it.
I see. Okay.
We have a question that's coming in from one of our listeners. What is the app that you use to help you with your breathing?
Yeah, it's called the Breathing app, and I'm not connected financially to at all. I just want you to make sure I'm very sensitive about that. I don't sell supplements or anything like that. It's called the Breathing app. And then there's many of them. Anyone you find, they should be able to change it so that it's a 4 second in and a 6 second out, and to play with that at home. Now, again, for some people, it's very hard because that 6 second long exhale, CO2 comes up and they feel, oh, I got to breathe. And so take your time with it. It's okay. But how I had people hold on the exhale, all the breathing exercises I coach are to extend that hold on the exhale to get you desensitized to CO2. It takes a while. I've been doing this every day for over 3 years. And so it's just a matter of getting it on your radar and building a practice out of it.
It's so interesting that you're focusing on breath work because so many of our patients have high blood pressure, the cardiovascular patients. And so this is something, if they're more conscious of their breathing, they're able to use breathing techniques to bring down their stress, bring down their anxiety. They can ultimately get their blood pressure at least into more controllable levels, coupled with a better diet.
I was just going to say, and some exercise that is not too much. It's like all those kinds of pieces all come in. It's not one thing, but boy, you add those things together and it's a game changer.
And that's a great segue, because I think going into our next segment, we can talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sid, but you have a plant, your inn is plant-based. Is that right?
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about that. So stay with us. Coming up after the break, we'll discuss more with Sid.
I'm Sid Garza-Hillman, Wellness Programs Director with the Stanford Inn and Resort along the Mendocino Coast with this week's Medical Notepad. Today, we are talking about functional breathing and vascular health. So functional breathing is very important in keeping our stress levels low and keeping our overall stress really managed and really nice. I'm going to take you through a quick exercise that if you're feeling a little stressed and anxious, to come into your breath and calm things down goes a very long way. And it goes like this. Start breathing into your nose and out of your nose. Your mouth is very relaxed and lips closed. Then you're going to go in through the nose and out through the nose. And you're going to lighten and soften that breath. So it's almost like you can't even hear it. And you're just kind of calm. And as you're breathing, I'm going to now cue you to what is really a functional breath for the human species, which is about a 4-second inhale and about a 6-second out. So right now, just kind of, and the exhale is just a release. Don't push out. Just let it go till it stops. And if you stop before I'm done with the 6 seconds, just wait until you hear me say in. So let's give it a try. Ready? Release your exhale and then follow my lead. And here we go. And in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, again, that was only 2, but to spend a couple minutes each day to just come into that and 4-second in, 6-second out, you will see the calmness and you'll get to be familiar with it. So you'll start kind of settling in that most times. With this week's Medical Notepad, I'm Sid Garza-Hillman, Wellness Programs Director of the Stanford Inn and Resort along the Mendocino Coast of California.
Remember, the advice and views offered during this series are for educational purposes only. Always check with your own healthcare provider before acting on any information provided here. If you want more information about peripheral artery disease, which impacts circulation in your legs, causing pain, cramping, and neuropathy, go to standagainsamputation.com. And for real-time support, go to thewaytomyheart.org.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kym McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Welcome back, everybody. And since we finished the last segment on breathing, we're going to pivot to what we all love is food. And Sid just told me during the break that they are the only 100% vegan resort in North America. Sid, tell us a little bit about that, why you're all vegan, and how does that play into the food that's made and the guests that potentially come there?
Yeah, well, interestingly, about over 95% of our guests are not vegan or vegetarian. So again, we're a resort. People come for a great vacation. It's good food, but we have a full bar and the wellness center, of course, and canoeing and biking and a pool. It's a very come on and have a great vacation kind of thing. The reason why we're 100% vegan is really non-nutritional. It's more of a environmental, ethical standpoint that Jeff and Joan embody, and myself too. I've been 100% vegan for 22 years. My family too, raised my three children that way. But for your listeners who may or may not know, the least healthy food in the world is vegan. What the definition of vegan is no animal products. And what I always say when I teach cooking and nutrition is I have no idea what vegans eat. I only know what they don't eat. And Coca-Cola is vegan. So you can drink scotch and Coca-Cola and be vegan. So it doesn't tell me anything. And I've met extremely unhealthy vegans in my many years of doing this and speaking around the country. So what we're trying to focus on here, and again, we're not a health retreat, but for the most part, again, we have a full bar and we have scones that are delicious, but they're not healthy, is most of our menus, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, are whole plant focused. And what that means is that less processing, less energy goes in. So there's certainly an environmental aspect to that. But it is healthier. And it's because I'm, as a nutritionist, very fiber focused. Fiber, among other things, nourishes the good gut bacteria. So as a species where we're out in the wild, and still to this day, the hunter-gatherer species that still, Hadza, there's a tribe, mostly plant-based, or about 95% plant-based, and animals when necessary, when they don't get enough calories from plants, let's say. And so we're very much of a fiber species. We thrive on that, as gorillas do too, and chimpanzees. And so it's sort of that kind of model here, but we're trying to make it delicious and accessible. So we have things on our menu, enchiladas, ravioli, like a Kahlua mushroom kind of pulled pork type thing that people who are not vegan, again, most of our guests come and enjoy and love because they get it. In the morning, we have a ranchero and we have a breakfast burrito and we have a, tofu scramble and we've got, all waffles and pancakes, things like that people get. Kids love it, and so it's a pretty accessible on purpose model in the context of a mostly whole plant cuisine.
But what about diabetics? Because more than 50% of American adults are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, and carbs are a pretty big deal. So many vegans I know are heavy in the carbs, and that can really raise your the glycemic index.
Yeah, well, the science on that tells a little bit of a different story, I will tell you. So they're reversing type 2 diabetes on whole plant-based diets, which are high carbohydrates. So I will tell you right now, like as a nutritionist, I'm a very high carbohydrate nutritionist, very low fat, very low protein. And when you're looking at what diabetes is, which is an insulin issue, I'll put it this way. If it were carbohydrates, I'd be diabetic because I've been eating high carbs, ton of fruit for 22 years, but I'm nowhere near diabetic. And when you look at the actual science of what inhibits insulin from being able to do its job, which is to get that out of the blood into the storage, it's high fat reversing type 2 diabetes by putting people on a high carbohydrate diet, not junk food carbohydrates, not donuts.
Yes, there's a difference.
That's right. And it's right. And when you marry those things with fiber, and which is found in plants, whole plants, the blood sugar is evened. It's actually a greater function of blood glucose control is the fiber content of that meal more than it is the carbohydrate content. I can eat a ton of fruit and my blood sugar doesn't spike. That's because of the presence of fiber keeps things very, very regular and very, I have a client, I just put type 1 diabetic. We're not reversing it, but he changed his diet. 3 weeks later, he's 50% reduction in his insulin, 50% reduction in 3 weeks and lost 25 pounds. And 2 months later, he's at a healthy weight for the first time. He's my age, 55, almost 55.
So two questions. One, where do you get your protein from? And second question is a lot of what I think what you're describing takes time and it takes time to prepare right at home. And I think we live in a society where people just want to go to the store and get something quick and it's also expensive. So how do you, I guess, balance that? Because people have to put effort into making these meals and going to the store, getting fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, etc. Right.
Well, it doesn't take any more time. I've raised 3 kids. 2 of them are twins. So the fact that I'm even awake right now is kind of amazing. But anyways, yeah. So and again, that's what we do here at the resort is we're demystifying that. We're taking the roadblocks, however far you go, it's up to you, but we're taking the roadblocks out. It does not take more time. And then I spend less time in the kitchen probably than anybody I know. And we're the only vegan family in our close circle of friends. And as far as the protein goes, every whole plant, there's more protein per calorie in spinach than there is in beef. So it is literally impossible to be protein deficient when you have enough calories.
So that's a myth. That's a myth too, then.
100%. There's a great book I would recommend. A buddy of mine wrote it named Garth Davis. He's a doctor out of Houston, an MD, who also trained in nutrition, called Proteinaholic. And why his story is interesting, he's a gastric bypass surgeon, and he has a practice called the Davis Clinic. And his first book on weight loss, and then advocated for a high protein diet. And I asked him on my first podcast when I had it years ago, he said, everything in my book was research backed except for high protein diet. It was just dogma. He then got deep into the research. His next book's called Proteinaholic, How High Protein Diets Are Killing Us. When he got into the research, he actually changed his tune 180 degrees. And that is what's happening. And it's very exciting stuff. There's a great site called nutritionfacts.org where Michael Greger's a nonprofit. He goes in, he's not funded by any industry, and he goes in and actually looks at the science, the real science of it. And it is very eye-opening.
It's so interesting. You should really follow the trends. Anything that's trendy, do not follow it, because somehow there always ends up being some sort of reversal, right?
Yeah.
It's, just like with the keto, the South Beach diet, all of the above. And then suddenly everyone's on it. There are all kinds of packaged food. Everyone's on the bandwagon. And then they're like, wait, halt, stop. Nope, not good for you.
Yeah, no. Putting baked potatoes, roasted vegetable salad, lentil soups, burritos, but you just, it's very easy to do. It's not, again, if it were really hard, I wouldn't do it with kids. Putting a fruit smoothie together.
What about for someone like me that I have a lot of food allergies. So I'm allergic to gluten. I'm allergic to barley. I'm allergic to baker's yeast. I'm allergic to wheat. What do I do?
Well, most everything you just listed there was gluten. And so it's very easy to beat quinoa, brown rice, millet, buckwheat. There's amaranth. There's a ton of grains you can play with. Roasted, like I said, beans, roasted vegetables, oatmeal. You can get gluten-free oatmeal. It just means it's not grown near wheat. But anyways, and a ton of fruit. And it's like when you get into it, it is, and this is what I coach with clients because they always have that preconceived idea, I do it, but it just takes so much time. I'm like, this is how easy this is. It is like super easy. And it's not even just kind of easy, it's actually easier. And when you get into the whole plant realm, one of the cells I have without selling anything is you spend less time thinking about food. I don't measure, count, or weigh anything. I eat more if I'm training for a race. I eat less if I'm not. And I'm in that realm. I've never been protein deficient. If I were protein deficient in 22 years, I'd know by now. And I'm not. The only supplement I take is B12 because that comes from dirt. I wash my produce like most people do. And I take D if I'm not out in the sun. And that's it. And my kids too. And my wife, who gave birth to twins on a 100% plant-based diet, no problem. So there's a lot of industry and a lot of money being made from keto kinds of craziness. But then there's the science. And one of my favorite magazine covers was the Keto magazine, Chef Waldorf salad on the cover. I go, whoa, those cave people were eating like kings over there. Good Lord.
We've got about a minute left before our break. What do you think about intermittent fasting?
I'm a huge fan. And the reason is because, again, my first book's called Approaching the Natural. All this follows, including the breath, which wasn't in my book, but it would be if I ever rewrote it, is a return to what's natural for us. We eat during the day and we sleep at night. But with artificial lights, we're eating at 10 p.m. and we're going to bed 30 minutes later. We're not digesting efficiently. And we get up at 5 in the morning and we're eating all the way through. And our gut bacteria is not ready for food at 5 a.m., nor is it ready for food at 10 p.m. So there's a difference in terms of the activity in the gut, which is, by the way, on circadian rhythm, just like our cells, day and night schedule. So everyone gets deep in the weeds on intermittent fasting, but the fact of the matter is just eat when it's light and don't eat it when it's dark. And we get so confused and so crazed by apoptosis and senescent cells. And that's all great. But for the person who's just getting up and going to work, eat during the day and don't eat at night. When it gets dark outside, stop eating. And that's basically what intermittent. I'm a huge fan.
Well, coming up right here on The Heart of Innovation, we'll have final thoughts from Sid Garza-Hillman. So stay with us. You don't want to miss that.
Welcome back to The Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kym McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We started with mentioning that we were going to talk about ecotourism, and we are going to close with what is ecotourism and why is this booming and how does it relate to what you're doing and what we've been talking about over the last hour?
So I would say the definition of ecotourism is tourism with an environmentally sustainable mindset behind it. And so it's basically there are people, and it's growing. I mean, look, we're recording this now in the hottest recorded summer ever, right? So you're talking about climate change. You're talking about we're going to have to, as a species, make some moves to be a little light, to lighten our touch on the earth. And that's just we either do or we don't, but it's time. So the Stanford, Jeff and Joan basically have, from day one, long before I was here, fashioned this place and moves in directions that have a sustainable backdrop. So the materials they use, the cleaning supplies that we use, the food we serve is the number one thing that we do that is the most environmentally sustainable thing that we do is the food we serve. Animal agriculture is a huge draw on the environment, just a huge drain. And the science is there. So it's just everything they do is kind of this ethic of how do we do this in a way that isn't too heavy-handed on the earth. We have an organic garden. We bring produce up from there and we serve that in the restaurant. We again, the cleaning supplies, all the things that we do, electric car, biodiesel, truck, things that are anything that we can do as possible. Our to-go stuff is all biodegradable, compostable. Like all the products we use are as the best quality that we can get and the lightest touch that we can get. And that's essentially what ecotourism. My concern as somebody who works for a resort in this vein is a lot of greenwashing, a lot of, hey, we're eco, but when you actually look at the facts, they're really not. And they're maybe better than others, and that's cool. But there's a lot more that people can do on a day-to-day basis that really make a difference.
Is it more expensive to go that route? And do you envision the large resorts of the world, the Four Seasons and the Hiltons and whatever, like going that route? Or, I go to the hotel, right? And they're like, hey, if you don't want to wash your towels, just, right, hang them up. That's their step in that direction, I guess. Yeah.
And look, all positive stuff. Look, John, the fact of the matter is it is a little bit more expensive, and here's not because it should be or could be otherwise. We serve organic produce here. So we order, organic plants, and they're going to be more expensive than conventional. That's a systemic that needs to change on a subsidies is a perfect example. McDonald's is cheap because of subsidies. And if we can rearrange how we do the business of this, at least in the United States, all of a sudden people have to pay what the market actually would bear without subsidies. They wouldn't be eating as many Big Macs. And so we're trying to answer those bigger questions here.
Perfect way to finish. Thank you so much, Sid Garza-Hillman, head of the wellness program over at the Stanford Inn along the Mendocino Coast. If anyone wants to reach out to learn more, Sid, where can they go?
StanfordInn.com. Very easy, StanfordInn.com.
Have a great weekend, everyone. John, enjoy your vacation.
Take care. We'll see you guys. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to The Heart of Innovation with Emmy Award-winning journalist Kym McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips. Our mission is to help patients live a better quality of life through comprehensive education, real-time support, and high-touch advocacy in partnership with thewaytomyheart.org and Take a Stand Against Amputation. Our purpose is to reduce the 1.5 million heart attacks and strokes and nearly 200,000 amputations annually. For more information regarding topics you've heard discussed on today's program, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. The Heart of Innovation is for educational and informational purposes only, and advice and views shared are not a substitute for medical advice from your own supervising physician. Do not act on any information provided in this show without the explicit consent from your own healthcare team. If you think you are having a medical emergency, call your local emergency number or go to the nearest hospital or emergency room.